I want you to picture a very specific, universally understood moment. You know the exact feeling.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
Yeah. So you've been working on this massive project for months, right? It has totally consumed your evening, your weekends, basically a terrifying amount of your mental bandwidth.
Just completely taken over your life.
Exactly. And finally, the moment arrives. You move your mouse, you hover over that final submit button, and you click.
The point of no return.
Right. And for about, I don't know, 3 seconds, you get this euphoric rush of pure, unadulterated relief. But then right on schedule, the relief just completely evaporates.
Yeah, that's when the panic sets in.
A sudden, creeping, icy panic. And a little voice in the back of your head whispers, wait, did I miss something?
It is the universal dread of the creator, honestly.
It really is.
The very second the work leaves your hands and becomes permanent, your brain just decides to vividly imagine, like, every possible catastrophic error you might have overlooked.
It's a terrifying transition. You're moving from the messy, fluid chaos of creating something into the absolute, unforgiving precision of a final product.
Right. The stakes suddenly feel incredibly high.
Okay, let's unpack this, because finishing a project like this is basically like running a marathon.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, after months of gathering photos and designing pages, that final review is that grueling last mile where your legs are just completely tired. And that is exactly when fatal mistakes happen.
Precisely. You're exhausted and your guard is down.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into a highly specific publishing checklist. It's from a guide by United Yearbook called Before You Submit: 7 Things Every Yearbook Team Should Double Check.
It's a really fantastic source document.
It is. And our mission today is to extract the ultimate defense mechanism, really, for finalizing literally any permanent publication.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that while the source material is, explicitly written for students and advisors finalizing a school yearbook, the underlying psychology here is universally applicable.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're handing in a master's thesis or pushing a huge software update live, finalizing a corporate annual report, or sending a yearbook to the printer, the mechanics of that final review process are identical.
It's all the same mental hurdle.
Exactly. It requires an entirely different cognitive approach than the creation phase.
So we're going to break down how to successfully make that terrifying leap from rough draft to permanent record. And we really have to start at the micro level.
The tiny details.
Right, because the most devastating errors in a permanent publication usually aren't like giant formatting glitches.
Yeah.
The worst errors are deeply personal.
You absolutely are.
When you think about a yearbook or a company directory, or what are the most recognizable parts, the parts everyone looks at first are the people.
The human element is always the highest stakes area.
Yeah.
The guide emphasizes that caption accuracy and student identifications are, well, they're the most critical starting points.
You really have to get those right.
You do. You're meticulously verifying name spellings, grade levels, event descriptions, and portrait grid placements. Just ensuring that the face actually matches the name printed underneath it.
The source material actually includes this great visual that captures the stakes perfectly.
Oh, the one with the marker.
Yeah, exactly. It's this close-up image of a hand holding a thick red marker, aggressively correcting a printed draft of a page.
It's very visceral.
It is. And if you look closely at the specific correction, it's a roster for the robotics team. There's a student listed as Ben W., but right next to him is a student whose last name is printed as Jensten with a T, Jensten.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the red pen has just swooped in, crossed out the rogue S, and left a note to make sure it reads correctly as Jensen, Jensen.
It seems like such a tiny detail, right? Just one single letter.
Right, but it's massive.
Exactly. To that student, to Jensen, that one letter changes the entire validity of the record. Getting a kid's name wrong in a printed, bound book is essentially like getting a typo in a tattoo.
It is forever.
It really is forever. You can't just log into a content management system the next morning and silently update it. It is locked in ink.
Wait, let me challenge that premise for a second, though.
Sure, go ahead.
With modern spell check, automated layout tools, and software that can basically predict what we're going to type before we even type it, are captions and names really still a high-risk area?
You'd think they wouldn't be.
Right. Shouldn't the software catch a glaring typo like Jensten long before it gets to the printer?
What's fascinating here is that names are actually the ultimate blind spot for automated software.
Really? How so?
Well, spell check dictionaries are notoriously terrible at handling surnames, especially diverse ones. So most creators eventually just command the software to ignore all on the roster pages, just to get rid of the red squiggly line.
Oh, wow, yeah, I do that all the time.
Right. But the real danger isn't the software failing, it's our own biology failing.
Our biology.
Yeah, it comes down to a psychological phenomenon called creator fatigue, specifically regarding predictive processing in the brain.
Predictive processing. How does that actually work when you're proofreading?
So when you're reading something for the first time, your eyes process the shapes of the letters and send that data to your brain to decode.
Okay, makes sense.
But when you've stared at a specific page layout for weeks, your brain fundamentally alters how it operates just to save energy.
Wait, it changes how it reads.
Yes. It stops reading the actual letters on the page and starts projecting what it expects to see.
Oh, that's wild.
So your eyes scan over Jensen, but your tired brain just feeds you the memory of Jensen because it knows that is what should be there. It effectively gaslights you by auto-correcting the errors in real time.
Wow. So your brain is basically prioritizing efficiency over accuracy.
Exact.
It's saying, I've seen this 100 times, I know what it says, skip to the next line. So how do you possibly bypass your own neurological shortcuts?
The guide suggests two very specific mechanical interventions to break that visual autocorrect. First, it tells advisors to force their teams to read the captions slowly and out loud.
Out loud. Because reading out loud shifts the processing to a different part of the brain.
Exactly that. When you speak the words, you force your brain to process the phonetics of the text, rather than just recognizing the visual shape of the word from memory.
That makes a lot of sense.
You cannot skim when you are speaking.
Yeah.
If you try to say Jenston out loud, your mouth literally stumbles over the S, and the error reveals itself.
It forces you to actually confront the letters. And what's the second intervention?
Bringing in fresh eyes, specifically for high-density text areas like rosters and index pages.
Someone who hasn't been staring at it for weeks.
Right. Someone who didn't build the page lacks that deeply ingrained visual memory of it. Their brain hasn't built a predictive model for that specific layout yet, so when they look at it, they're actually seeing the raw data. The rogue letters just leap out at them.
Okay, so we fixed the typos, the names are perfect, the captions are factually flawless.
Yeah.
But what happens when a flawlessly spelled name sits under a photo so blurry you can't even tell who it is?
Yeah, that's a whole different nightmare.
Or the text is pushed so far to the edge of the page that it gets cut off. This brings us to the visual transition. We have to look at why computer screens actively lie to us about what a project actually looks like.
The transition from digital to physical is where so many projects just fall apart.
Yeah.
The guide focuses heavily on photo resolution and the mechanics of printing. A computer monitor is backlit. It's actively using electricity to blast colored light directly into your retinas.
Right.
That aggressive backlighting can make a low-resolution photo look deceptively crisp, bright, and clear on a screen. But a printed book doesn't emit light. It relies on physical ink absorbing ambient light off a piece of paper.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The guide explicitly warns against the temptation to take a small digital image and stretch it to fill a large space on a page.
It's a huge mistake.
I like to think of a digital image like a small piece of stretchy fabric, maybe a piece of elastic or spandex.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, if you hold it in your hands, it looks solid and opaque. But if you stretch that small piece of fabric tightly over a giant wooden frame, the material doesn't magically multiply to fill the space.
No, of course not.
It just gets distorted, the individual threads pull apart, it stretches thin, and suddenly you can see right through it.
That is exactly what you are doing to the pixels in an image when you force a low-resolution file into a large layout. You're pulling the visual data so thin that it fundamentally breaks down.
Resulting in a blurry, heavily pixelated mess in print.
Exactly.
Okay, so I understand the technical limitations of photo resolution.
Yeah.
The math of pixels per inch is objective. But the guide also harps heavily on design consistency.
Yes, it's a major focus.
It mandates checking for consistent fonts, steady color palettes, the alignment of text boxes, repeating graphic themes. Honestly, let me push back a bit here. Isn't that just subjective?
It seems that way, yeah.
Like, as long as the information is accurate and the photos are sharp, why is design consistency elevated to a hard, mandatory checklist item alongside, spelling a kid's name right?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it feels subjective until you understand the concept of visual friction. Consistency is not about aesthetics. It is fundamentally about cognitive load and reader trust.
Cognitive load, meaning how hard the brain has to work to consume the book.
Yes. When a design is inconsistent, say the font changes from Arial to Times New Roman without a logical reason, or a text box is aligned a quarter inch lower on the right page than the left page, the reader's brain subconsciously registers that irregularity as a problem to be solved.
Oh, interesting.
The reader might not consciously think, the kerning is off, but they experience a tiny spike of visual friction. Their brain briefly stops processing the actual information and starts trying to decode the formatting.
So a messy design literally distracts the reader from the content. It exhausts them.
It does, and that exhaustion erodes trust. A steady, cohesive design language operates invisibly. It quietly guides the reader's eye, signaling that the creators are in total control of the information.
It creates a sense of authority.
Exactly. It allows the reader to relax. Consistency is the invisible glue that makes a massive publication feel like a single, unified, authoritative object rather than, a random stack of Word documents stapled together.
Okay, so the text is flawless, the images are sharp, and the design is this beautifully paved highway guiding my eye with zero friction.
Sounds perfect.
But what if that highway leads me straight off a cliff?
Oh, right.
Like, what if the pages themselves are in the completely wrong order? We have to zoom out to the macro level now, the architecture of the project. If the foundational structure fails, the entire house collapses, regardless of how nice the interior design is.
This is where we look at structural integrity, page numbering, section organization, and the cover and spine details.
Crucial stuff.
Very. And the guide points out that structural errors rarely happen because someone forgot how to count. They happen because of the realities of project management.
Things change.
Exactly. During a month-long design process, spreads are constantly being added, deleted, or shuffled around.
Right, like maybe the spring sports section needs 2 more pages, so everything after it gets bumped back.
Exactly. And in complex design software, bumping a section back can create a dangerous ripple effect. A spread that was meticulously designed for page 40 is suddenly sitting on page 42.
And if the software doesn't catch it.
Right. If the automated numbering doesn't sync perfectly, or if a team member manually typed a page number in a text box, the sequence just breaks. Which is why verifying sequential numbering is critical. But even more dangerous than that is the table of contents.
Wait, really? Why does the table of contents specifically fail so often?
Because the table of contents is usually built early in the process as a roadmap, but it isn't always dynamically linked to the final page outputs.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so if you shuffle those spring sports pages at the 11th hour, the table of contents sitting at the front of the book doesn't magically know that happened. If you don't manually cross-reference the final output against the index, you end up printing a book that gives its readers a broken map.
That's a disaster. And speaking of the exterior, the guide puts a massive emphasis on the cover and the spine. Check in the school name, the year, and specifically the spine text placement and readability.
The spine is a really fascinating psychological element of publishing.
I love thinking about it like the front door of a house.
That's perfect.
Because if the hinges are broken on the front door, nobody cares how nice the living room is, right?
Exactly. It's a tiny sliver of physical real estate, maybe an inch wide, but it dictates the permanent identity of the work.
Yeah.
A yearbook, or any archival report, spends perhaps a few weeks of its life sitting flat on a coffee table, but it will spend the next 50 years sitting vertically on a bookshelf.
So the spine is literally the only part of the project anyone will actually see for the next half century.
Precisely. If the spine alignment is slightly off, or if the text wraps awkwardly around the front cover because the page count calculation was wrong, the archival presentation is permanently compromised. It signals a lack of care before the book is even opened.
So what does this all mean for our final review strategy?
Yeah.
How do we actually catch these structural failures? We know our brains autocorrect text, we know our screens lie to us about resolution, and we know our software can hide pagination errors.
It's a minefield.
It really is. What is the ultimate defense mechanism to use right before we hit that submit button.
This raises an important question, and the source material offers a brilliant, highly effective final step, the format shift.
The format shift.
Yeah. The guide dictates that for the final perf review, you must read the project from start to finish, hunting for duplicate photos, shifted text boxes, and missing pages. But the crucial instruction is to print a proof copy, or at the very least review it in a totally different format than the design software.
Why is changing the format so effective at breaking our blind spots?
It comes down to spatial memory and context. When you spend months building a massive project in design software, your brain gets incredibly comfortable in that specific digital environment.
Right.
You're usually zoomed in, looking at isolated chunks of the project. You remember things spatially relative to your monitor, like the senior portrait grid is in the bottom left quadrant of my screen. You become blind to the holistic structure.
Oh, so you're looking at the bark on a single tree, you aren't seeing the forest.
Exactly. By exporting the project to a different viewer, or far better, printing it out on physical paper, you violently strip away the safety of that software interface. You force your brain entirely out of its comfort zone.
You break the digital spell.
You do. When you hold the pages in your hands, things you have stared at 100 times suddenly look entirely new. A text box that drifted 2 millimeters into the margin, which looked totally fine on a glowing screen, suddenly leaps out as a glaring error on paper.
Or a duplicate photo.
Yes. A duplicate photo that you missed because it was hidden in a collapsed folder in the software becomes impossible to ignore when it's printed twice in the same physical stack.
Because you're finally experiencing the project the way the end user is going to experience it, not as a series of isolated digital files, but as a continuous physical object.
That final start-to-finish read-through in a new format is the only way to ensure that all the disparate pieces, the accurate captions, the high-resolution images, the cohesive design, the sequential numbering, actually lock together to form a structurally sound publication.
It really is the ultimate reality check. After months of effort from a team, the final review is what actually cements the value of the work. During the creation phase, your responsibility is to the idea. But during the final review phase, your responsibility shifts entirely to the reader.
That is the core philosophy. You are guaranteeing the integrity of the information for the person who will eventually consume it.
And it is a heavy responsibility. It's worth noting that the creators of this guide, United Yearbook, actually offer a lifeline for this exact type of publishing panic.
They do, and it's so helpful.
Yeah, they work with advisors and teams from the very first planning meeting all the way through to that terrifying final submission. If you're in the weeds on a project like this and need expert guidance to navigate these pitfalls, they have a dedicated support system.
Highly recommend reaching out if you're feeling overwhelmed.
Definitely. You can email them at info@unitedyearbook.net. They also have a toll-free hotline for this, which is 1-877-33-YEARBOOK. And for anyone listening internationally who might need that kind of structural support, the number is 909-373-4087. Having a guide who knows exactly where the trapdoors are hidden in the final mile of a project is invaluable.